James Harden. Yes, that James Harden has the Cavs on the brink of advancing to the Eastern Conference Finals. And in the West, Victor Wembanyama is doing his thing, and he is here. And now he's got his Spurs on the brink of making the Western Conference Finals. Talking hoops next. All right, we'll start with tonight's game, which was a good one. The Pistons hosting the Cavaliers. The Pistons were up 15 at one point in this game, and it looked like they were going to take it. But the Cavs said, nope, not so fast. They came back, honestly, behind a great performance by James Harden. And Max Strus came in off the bench. And I'm just going to say this. Max Strus has been the only Cavalier, in my opinion, that has played every game in these playoffs like it's the damn playoffs, okay? Because that's been my biggest issue with the Cavs. As you guys know, I picked the Cavs to win this series in 6 games. And I've watched them all playoffs, including the series with Toronto, just come out in games 1 and games 2 pretty much, and early games in the series, and kind of sleepwalk through the series. Yes, they won games 1 and game 2 against Toronto, but the desperation was not there. Don't forget, they were playing a Toronto team that was severely undermanned, and I would say severely less talented than the Cavaliers. And it took them 7 games to get through the Toronto Raptors. Now they got the Pistons, and same thing, games 1 and game 2 on the road in Detroit. They kind of play around with their food. And I said that I called out James Harden because I think his defense has just been absolutely terrible until the last couple games where their backs are against the wall and desperation calls. And now you see suddenly James Harden's running back. He's running back on defense. James Harden is, making plays. He's getting steals. Who is this guy, right? And that's the thing that's been so annoying with this Cavaliers team, that they, in my opinion, they're definitely, I think, more talented than Detroit, which is why I picked them in 6 games. But then you watch those first few games, and the Cavaliers just don't play with the sense of urgency. And it's not just James Harden, okay? I mean, it's been the other guys, Evan Mobley, which he was huge tonight late in the game, but there's been some games where one game he played 36 minutes and finished with 1 rebound. Unacceptable, right? Jared Allen, game 7 against Toronto, had a near 20-20 game. And then game 1 against Detroit, he was horrible. So that's the thing, the inconsistency with this Cavalier team. And then as you see, I mean, they go home for game 3. It's desperation time. Suddenly they decide they want to play a little bit of defense, and they get the win. Same thing in game 4. And now in game 5 on the road, same thing, right? I mean, when this team locks in, I think they're good. I mean, I'm not going to go as far as saying they're the best team in the East, because I do think I'm leaning Knicks right now. But this Cavalier team has it. And also, I'm assuming here that the Cavs are advancing. Let's not move too fast, because if there's anything I've learned about this Cavaliers team, this playoff run, is that they like to play with their food, and that they don't have that killer instinct from the get-go. And they almost need their backs up against the wall. And quite frankly, I picked the Cavs to win this series against Detroit in 6 games. And right now I'm leading 7, because I just think that game 6, the Cavs will be feeling themselves. They feel good. And Detroit's going to come out there, giving it their all, like they've been doing this whole series, because I think they're essentially the least talented team of the two. And talent sometimes it can lose out to hard work. And I think that could happen in game 6. And I fear that the Cavs might come out lackadaisical like they have when their backs aren't against the wall. I mean, they have a 3-2 series lead now, and it might take 7. But we'll see how it goes. But James Harden, like I said, look, I called him out when I thought he was playing terrible. And today, it's not even the points, right? I mean, he finished leading the Cavaliers in scoring. Yes, he had 30 points tonight on 8 for 21 shooting. But for me, it's the defense. For me, it's the effort. For me, it's just he had some turnovers. Yes, he had – how many turnovers did he have? 6 turnovers today. So he still turned the ball over. But when it was crunch time, when it mattered, I mean, it seemed like then he locked in. And again, it's about the defensive side of the ball, right? Defense wins championships. And that's what I saw with James Harden. Listen, offensively, I'm not saying he's fun to watch. There was one point in the overtime against Detroit where he literally dribbled up the court and then was almost anticipating contact. Who was it that was from Paul Reed? And he kind of flopped, laid on the floor, and realized like, oh, I got to get rid of the ball before it's a jump ball and somebody jumps on me. And then he tried to pass it to Jared Allen. It was almost a backcourt violation, ended up being a turnover. And that's because he tried to flop and get a foul call. So he's not fun to watch, okay? But No one's asking him to be a Draymond level defender. No one's asking him to be a lockdown defender. But when he gives effort defensively, it matters. And there's still plays. There was one play where I think it was Tobias Harris who had a wide open three in the corner, and it was supposed to be Harden who rotated over in the overtime. And lucky for the Cavaliers, the shot was missed. He's not, I feel like, ever going to be a good defender, but he can't be a liability. He can't be ball watching and getting backdoor cuts on him and things like that. And at least these last few games, he's been better. And that's the thing that I've noticed. So we'll see how it goes. Game 6, like I said, it's in Cleveland. So you would think, all right, Cleveland, close them out. I'm just going to say, based on what I've seen from the Cavaliers, they don't, when they have a series lead or they're feeling good, they don't lock in like they do when it's desperate time. But I will say Donovan Mitchell didn't play great today. He ended up finishing with 21 points in the overtime finish. But I think Donovan's going to be that leader for them in game 6 in Cleveland, and maybe that's how they close it out. But I think Detroit's going to be able to sneak a win in, and it'll go 7 back to Detroit. We'll see. We'll see how it plays out. As for the Pistons, Cade did all he could do, but towards the end, you could see it. Cleveland just started doubling him, getting the ball out of his hands, and it was up to the others. Like I said, Tobias missed a 3. All-Star Thompson ain't much of a shooter. He had a wide-open 3 that he missed, an important one. Dennis Jenkins came in, 19 points. This guy was in the G League last year and played great. He's given them a spark. But, I mean, Jalen Duren, 9 points, 5 rebounds, only 25 minutes, and he was pretty much benched in the fourth quarter and in overtime. We didn't see him anymore. And it was Paul Reed kind of finishing up the show and playing better. Quite frankly, in 17 minutes, he had 10 and 8. He's just playing better. I mean, Jalen Duren was a team worst minus 16 on the plus minus. We'll look ahead later into the future. The Pistons might very well still win this series. But looking into the future, you can't pay him near max money. I won't get too much into it, but if I'm the Pistons, man, next year you hope he balls out early in the season. And honestly, I would move him. Because if he's trying to get me to pay him, no. I got Cade, which for sure I'll pay. I know that much. Dennis Jenkins coming up. Osar Thompson's not much of an offensive weapon, but these guys, not that they're going to get max money, but these are role players that I want to have on my team. And if I pay Jalen Duren a max contract, well, the depth's going to start to suffer at some point. I'd rather trade him and get some picks and get Cade's young enough. So Pistons fans aren't going to want to hear that because it's like, why are we going to take a step back right now when we can, push forward? But realistically, unless they have a miraculous turnaround here and they make the finals and prove that they can be a finals team, I don't see it with such a liability in Jalen Duren. And right now you're not even paying him. So when you have to pay him, well, that changes things. Now you're not going to have that money for the Paul Reeds, the Tobias Harris, the Dennis Jenkins, those kind of guys, right? So it's team building and honestly just seeing which guys are finals level actual players. And no doubt Cade Cunningham is that guy. And with Jalen Duren, he's getting exposed here in these playoffs. He doesn't have a 3-point shot. And it's hard. Like it's different when it was like a cat or something like that. Karl Anthony Towns when he was younger, where you could be like, all right, he could expand his game. Maybe he's struggling with foul trouble. Those are things we could try to fix. Unless Jalen Duren's going to pick up a jump shot and a 3-point shot in the next few years, which I don't see, then I don't see why you would pay him max money. So we'll see. Now, all right, so that's this matchup. Obviously, the Knicks are waiting to see who wins this series. They will be hosting no matter who. Oh, I guess if Detroit wins the series, Detroit will be hosting because they're the 1 seed. So for the Knicks, I guess you're rooting for the Cavaliers because then you'll have home court advantage against them. Now, when we look at the West, the Western Conference, well, man, Victor Wembanyama, I've said this. Look, I picked the Wolves in 7 in these series, and there's an off chance that happens, but really I don't see it. The Spurs are so talented. The Wolves are so beat up. Conley's doing everything he can, but he's older. Ant Edwards kind of beat up. Now, can I see the Wolves winning a game 6? Yes, I could see that happening. They're at home. The fans will go crazy. But really, man, the reason I would normally give the Wolves a chance is because I would say if they steal a game 6 at home, well, now the pressure is on the Spurs for game 7. What are they going to do? They're the favorite. But the Spurs have been put in that situation time and time again and proven that they're here, proven that they're mature enough, proven that they know how to play under pressure. right? I mean, they dropped game 1 to the Wolves. Pressure is on. Game 2, you guys better win, right? You can't go down 0-2 at home. Well, they bounced back and won by like 40 points, right? Game 5, all right, you coming off a loss when Wembanyama, had to leave the game in Minnesota. So game 5 of a 2-2 series, you're at home. You got to win this game. You can't go back to Minnesota down 3-2. Yeah, well, they won 126-97 and sent a message, right? Wembanyama came out scorching. He finished the game with 27 points and 17 rebounds. His defense, and it's not just that. Dylan Harper comes in off the bench and just was incredible. I mean, he only scored 12 points, but if you watch that game, what he's doing, he had 10 rebounds, right? So he was a plus 13, and that's the guy that stuck out to me when he comes off the bench, and he's practical. I mean, if he was on any other team, essentially, he'd be a starter. And on the Spurs team, because they have so much depth, he's coming off the bench, and he's a rookie. It's incredible. Not fazed by the moment. De'Aaron Fox, 18 points. They got that veteran right there. They got a veteran in Harrison Barnes as well. This team's just showing that they got it. I mean, Stephon Castle, 17 points on 8 for 11 shooting. So, again, I can go on and on. Vassell, Champagny starting, and that guy plays fine. I mean, he didn't have a great game with 8 points, but, he's a 3-point threat. So, again, this Spurs team just seems more talented, deeper, and the one thing you would say the Wolves have on them is experience, and it doesn't seem to matter. So, not going to put the Wolves to bed just yet because I think they can sneak out a Game 6 win at home. But if I, had to bet on this, I think the Spurs close it out in the Game 6. I think Victor's got that killer instinct. I think coming back to Minnesota after being not suspended, but ejected from that last game, I think he'll want to send a message. Now, Ant will too for the Wolves, but he's banged up. He's beat up. Maybe the extra day of rest helps because there's no games on Thursday. So both of the Game 6s will be on Friday. So that'll be a fun basketball day. But other than that, OKC, they're the 1 seed. They're just waiting. Obviously, I think for them, the better matchup is the Wolves. They've beaten the Wolves before. They have confidence. The Wolves are beat up. If the Wolves miraculously come back and win this series, I think then the Thunder, you can book them to be in the finals. But the Spurs, if they get this done, that OKC San Antonio series is going to be epic. And so I won't talk about those series or preview anything yet because there's still games to be played. Anything can happen, right? We've seen this with basketball. But if I'm predicting now, I think the Spurs can get it done in Game 6. And I think I'll give Detroit some love because I think they play hard. I just don't think they're as talented as Cleveland. And I think if Cleveland plays just as hard as Detroit, I don't think there's a question then that Cleveland wins. But I worry about that with them because they haven't done it in, these playoffs. They were up 2-0 against Toronto, went to Toronto in the Game 3. You should have that killer instinct. We're an older team. We can get to the next round and rest up. They didn't have it. Game 4, yes, it was close, and Toronto needed a miraculous shot. But you're way more talented. Toronto didn't even have Brandon Ingram at that point. Like, you should be winning by 20. Didn't happen. So that was even actually Game 6 that the Toronto got lucky. It didn't happen. You could have closed out the series in 6 in Toronto. It didn't happen. So I don't know. I mean, this time they're at home in Game 6. Maybe that matters, knowing that if they lose, they have to go to Detroit for Game 7, whereas in the Toronto series, they were coming home. So we'll see. But that's the way I see it playing out. But, OKC is just waiting. They sent the Lakers home. And the Knicks sent Philly home, and that was freaking sad if you're a Sixers fan because, man, so many Knicks fans just taking over that building. If you were a Sixers fan in there, you had to feel terrible. You're at home. You're supposed to have, some help there. But the Sixers since then have fired their GM, Daryl Morey. So what do you do now if you're the Sixers? The problem with them is with Toronto, they just got bad contracts. The Paul George deal is aging poorly. Embiid contract, so bad. The guy, I feel bad for him, but he barely plays. And when he plays, you're holding your breath that he might get injured and not play. Even in these playoffs, he would play a couple games. He'd sit because he had an injury. Then he'd come back. Like, it was just in and out, in and out. It's not consistent. At least they have BJ Edgecombe. Tyrese Maxey is a stud. I would just try to do anything that I could to move off Embiid. And honestly, Paul George, take what you can for him, because if he has another injury now, then his market's completely killed at that point. So if you could get anything for those guys, I would, because I don't think they're a championship team. Embiid's only going to get older. So if he's already inconsistently playing, what makes you feel like he could have a, 2-month playoff run? I doubt it. Even if you rest him all season, is he going to come in April and be able to play all the way until June? Don't think so. So if I'm the Sixers, that's my plan. A new GM coming in, at least you think has, some job security where maybe they can take a step back. I'm big on that, as you guys can see. I'm just realistic. If your roster and your team doesn't seem to be ready for the finals, then it's okay to take a step back to take 2 steps forward, as opposed to constantly pushing down on the same idea, right? Or doubling down on something that you can see is not working. And so with Philly, it's been a long time. This isn't working. This was your best chance. Essentially, think about it. You had pretty much everyone as healthy as they're going to be. Paul George, healthy. Tyrese Maxey, healthy. Edgecombe is young, healthy. The role players, pretty damn healthy. And Embiid is the healthiest he's going to be, to be honest. And you got swept in the second round. So, I would just try to get out of that as soon as possible, as opposed to doubling down, doing this. Then it gets harder to trade those guys. The more you wait, the more injuries. And then by the time that those guys, their contracts are up, if you don't end up trading them, then you're going to have to pay VJ Edgecombe. So at that point, you should, if Edgecombe's got 4 more years on a rookie deal, even if the next 2 years of his rookie deal are kind of a wash, those last 2 are super valuable, because by then he might be just as good as Maxey. And you can have a great backcourt with a guy that's still got 2 years left on a relatively cheap contract, and you can fill out, you can make a trade, a win now trade then for a 2-year expiring contract or something, where that could be your next power forward that now you match up with Maxey and Edgecombe. So that's what I would do. Like I said, that would be my strategy. As for the Lakers, the other team that got bounced and swept, obviously for them, the big question is just they didn't have Luka. And so it's hard to gauge what they do. I would not bring back LeBron on the max, not because I don't think he's a good basketball player. He's incredible for his age, but I'm not here for a charity, right? Like, we got to win. He's not a max level player at this point. You can, his numbers show for it. LeBron 10 years ago, he might have even been able to will the Lakers to a couple wins here against the Thunder, but he just doesn't have it like that. Totally understandable. If he didn't have it like that at 35, it'd be understandable. The guy's over 40 already. But if he comes back on a discounted contract, in the 20 to 30 million range, where you don't have to pay him the max, that's great. That opens up to some cap space. Now you might have to decide on Austin Reeves, and that's a decision to make, because it doesn't make sense to save 20 million not paying LeBron, but then just give Austin Reeves that money. And now you run it back with the same roster. I just don't think that roster is going to work, even if Luka's playing. And you got to take into account that LeBron is in his early 40s. So this is another year on his body. You can't expect him to be the same. You have to start expecting him to, start taking steps back and getting a little bit worse every year. Still incredible. No disrespect, but that's just the reality. Father Time is undefeated. So JJ Redick has proven to be a great coach, back-to-back 50-plus win seasons. So I think the Lakers are in a fine situation, but they just have to be smart with their contracts and find those kind of players that you can maximize their value. Hachimura played great in the playoffs. What happens with him? Because if you're going to have to pay him, that's where maybe if you're the Lakers, you might trade Austin Reeves and just think for yourself, you know what? Do we pay Austin Reeves but lose Hachimura and Marcus Smart and those type of players? Or do we get rid of Austin Reeves, maybe go a little younger? And not that he's old. He's still, pretty young, but at least get more pieces, more depth that can help Luka, and we can play towards Luka basketball, help defensively, and hope that LeBron is healthy enough to contribute at a high level once the playoffs roll around. So we'll see what the Lakers do, but I think overall, considering the injury to Luka, yes, it's a disappointing season, but they got to. They got to the second round without Luka Doncic, their best player, defeating the Houston Rockets in 6 games. So, and the Thunder are just a juggernaut. It's hard for anybody to beat those guys. So, those are the guys that got bounced. We'll keep watching the playoffs. Friday should be an exciting day. Could be the last game for the Pistons and the Wolves. We'll see, and we'll recap it on Friday. And I'll talk to you guys then. Have a good one.